They say holidays bring families together. For me, Thanksgiving was the day mine finally tore me apart. I remember the cold. Not the kind that lingers outside in November, but the kind that creeps into your bones even while you're indoors, when the people closest to you turn colder than any wind. I arrived back home on Wednesday afternoon, suitcase in hand, the wheels crunching through the leaves scattered across my parents' perfect suburban lawn. The house looked the same, white shutters, pumpkin wreath on the door, a smell of cinnamon and lies already wafting from inside. It had been 6 months since I'd last seen them. 6 months since I dropped out of college after my third panic attack in a month and called them, trembling, from a hospital bed, asking if I could come home. They said no. Dad told me over the phone, "You made your bed." But this time, they invited me. Thanksgiving. A new start, maybe. A gesture of peace. I was wrong. Mom opened the door with a too bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was wearing an apron that read "Bless this mess," and kissed my cheek like I was a stranger she pitied. "There's my boy," she said. Then looked me up and down like she was appraising an old coat from the attic. Dad didn't even come to the door. Inside, everything gleamed. New furniture. New curtains. Even the chandelier looked different, brighter, grander. My brother Jake was already there, lounging on the leather couch, drink in hand, his MBA diploma recently framed above the fireplace like a family trophy. "Hey. Drop out," he smirked. "Hey, narcissist," I said, trying to smile. My voice cracked. My hands were sweating. Jake had always been the favorite, but now, the contrast was almost cinematic. He stood tall, hair slicked back, eyes sharp and shining. With that smug glow of someone who never failed a test or second-guessed a decision. He wore success like a suit. I wore shame like a scar. "Still looking for work?" he asked, sipping from his whiskey. I noticed the glass was from the crystal set Grandma left me in her will. The set Dad had said must have gotten lost in the move. I swallowed hard. "Still figuring things out." He nodded, grinning. "Well, you better figure fast." Dinner was scheduled for 6. At 5:45, Mom called me into the dining room. The table was perfect. Turkey golden, sides arranged like magazine spreads, wine glasses filled. A candle flickered at each place setting, except mine. "Where should I sit?" I asked. Jake chuckled. "Yeah, about that." Mom didn't meet my eyes. "We actually think it's best if you don't join us tonight." I blinked. Dad, finally speaking from the end of the table, said, "This house is for people who try, son. Not quitters. Not leeches." The words felt like knives. "I'm your son." He shook his head. "Not the one we raised." I looked at my mother. She looked away. "Go pack your things," Dad said, like he was dismissing a waiter. "We'll call you a cab. You can stay at a motel or wherever it is people like you end up." "You're throwing me out? On Thanksgiving?" Jake whistled low. "Tough love. World doesn't hand out second chances." They all turned back to the turkey. I stood there. Heart pounding. Eyes burning. For a second, I thought maybe I could scream. Maybe I could smash that perfect chandelier and watch it shatter across the table. But I didn't. I just walked out. The wind bit at my face as I waited on the porch. Suitcase beside me, while Dad called the cab. I could hear laughter inside. Silverware clinking. My place empty that night. I checked into a rundown motel off I-90. The walls were stained, the sheets scratchy, and the heating groaned like a dying animal. I sat on the edge of the bed and cried. The kind of cry you can't stop, where the hurt comes in waves, and you wonder if it'll ever end. They were done with me, but something inside me, something deeper than pride or pain, whispered, "They think you're a loser. Prove them wrong. Then make them regret ever saying it." That whisper stayed with me every day after that. The next 2 years were hell. I took night shifts washing dishes at a diner, slept on couches, worked freelance gigs writing ad copy no one would ever read. I taught myself graphic design from free YouTube videos, built built a portfolio, started pitching to real clients. There were weeks I didn't eat 3 full meals, but I didn't give up till I got a gig redesigning a real estate website. Then a chain of small businesses. Then a corporate rebrand. My name started circulating in online circles. I built a presence. Quietly. Consistently. A success didn't come all at once, it trickled in, slow and cautious, like it didn't quite trust me yet, but I kept pushing. I had one goal: be undeniable. Then show up where they can't ignore you. 3 years later, I was running my own design agency. Small team. Loyal clients. Modest but steady income. Still humble, still quiet, but no longer invisible. One day, I received an unexpected email, looking for branding help for a new family business venture. Potential long-term work. Can we talk? The sender, Jake. I stared at the screen, stunned. I hadn't spoken to any of them since that Thanksgiving. No calls. No texts. They hadn't tried, and neither had I. But now, he needed me. I clicked on the email. He didn't recognize my business name, it wasn't tied to my personal account. Just a company. A firm. With a logo and a contact form. I replied, professionally, happy to connect. Let's schedule a call. And just like that, the plan began to form. I didn't want to hurt them, not with fists or fire. I wanted something more refined. I wanted to watch them fall. We had our first Zoom meeting the next day. Jake's face filled the screen, still smug, but slightly more tired. His eyes flickered as he spoke, clearly reading from a pitch deck. He never once realized who I was. My camera was off. I used a different name. My voice was lower, calmer, more confident. We're opening a family-run vineyard and event space. He explained. We're trying to elevate the brand. Think luxury, legacy, prestige. I smiled behind the screen. Legacy, I could destroy that. I agreed to the project. I designed everything. The logo. The color palette. The website. The tagline, harvest. The truth. Subtle. Personal. Poetic. They loved it. We met weekly. I learned every detail about their new business, their financial timelines, their launch goals, their family messaging. I watched as they poured everything into the venture. They even featured a photo on their About Us page. Mom, Dad, Jake, arms around each other, standing where my place should have been, but I wasn't bitter anymore. I was building something they would never see coming. Thanksgiving approached again. For years since they kicked me out. For years since I swore I'd never beg to be loved by people who only celebrated success, never sacrifice. I booked a private domain the day before Thanksgiving, therealharvestfamily.com, a replica of their new business site, but with one major difference: this site told my story, the real one. I wrote every word. From the panic attacks to the Thanksgiving betrayal. I uploaded the screenshot of Dad's email disowning me. I posted the voicemail Jake left calling me a parasite. I shared photos. Receipts. I told the world what a family really looked like behind the vineyard walls. Then I linked the site in a quiet tweet. This family runs a vineyard, but they once threw their son out on Thanksgiving for not being successful enough. Here's the truth. Link. I didn't add hashtags. I didn't tag them, but the truth doesn't need a megaphone. It just needs oxygen. By the next morning, the site had gone viral. When the site went viral, it didn't explode all at once. It began like a flickering candle, just a few shares, some retweets, quiet comments like whispers in a hallway. This can't be real. What kind of parents do this? Imagine tossing your own kid for struggling. By noon, it was trending. By evening, local news outlets picked it up. Vineyard family accused of disowning son over mental health struggles. The article used their faces, their words, screenshots, emails, direct quotes pulled from the site I'd built. People were angry. Not just internet angry. Righteously angry. Mental health advocates. Youth organizations. Even former clients of theirs who'd had off experiences. Then came the fallout. Jake called me 2 days later, blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. Hey. This is Jake. I think we need to talk. I know you're probably upset. Just call me back, okay? I didn't. I watched instead. Their business, Harvest Hill Vineyards, began bleeding customers. Their launch event? Cancelled. Sponsors dropped out. Their Instagram account turned off comments after being flooded with disgust and disappointment. A week later, they posted a statement: "We are deeply saddened by the misinformation being spread online and hope to clarify things soon. Family matters are complex and private." Private. That's rich, coming from people who once paraded Jake's trophies in their Christmas cards like war medals and left me behind without a second thought. But I wasn't finished. I sent a single email from my business address. Subject: brand closure proposal. Body: "Hi Jake, if you'd like help rebranding, maybe something that doesn't rely on our family values, let me know. Rates have gone up." No response. You'd think that would have been the climax, the takedown. But the truth is, revenge isn't just a moment. It's a process. And once it begins, it reveals things you never expected to uncover. 2 weeks after the scandal broke, I received a letter in the mail, from my mother. It wasn't long. Just a folded piece of stationery. "I don't know if you'll even read this. I know we failed you. I know we let pride speak louder than love. Your father, he still can't say it, but I can. I was wrong. We were wrong. And I'm sorry. Jake's gone. He moved to New York. Doesn't return calls. Your father drinks now. Says the vineyard was cursed. Sometimes I set an extra plate at the table. I don't know if it's for you or for the guilt. Love, Mom." I held the letter in my hands for a long time. Something in me softened, but didn't break, because this wasn't closure. It was confession, and it didn't undo what they did. I moved to Seattle shortly after that. Started fresh. The city welcomed me in that rainy, forgiving way only a place with strangers can. I rented a small apartment with plants on the windowsill and a kettle that always steamed at just the right hour. My business grew. Not wildly. Not explosively. But with roots, solid and slow and stubborn. I hired 2 full-time employees. We worked from coffee shops and co-working spaces, creating real things for real people, but the past didn't vanish. It echoed. Thanksgiving came around again. I wasn't invited anywhere. And that was fine. I roasted a chicken instead of a turkey. Made instant mashed potatoes. Opened a bottle of red I'd saved for no reason at all. Then I did something I hadn't expected to do. I wrote them a letter, but not a reply. This one I posted publicly. To the family who threw me out on Thanksgiving, I used to think forgiveness meant forgetting. That to move on, you had to let go of the pain and pretend the wound never existed. But I've learned something else. Forgiveness doesn't erase the scar. It just keeps you from bleeding every time someone says your name. You hurt me. You made me believe I was less than a burden. A loser. But I survived. And then I thrived. Not because of you. In spite of you. This Thanksgiving, I'm not waiting for a place at your table. I've built my own. And I sit at its head. You're not welcome here. But the truth is, I don't need you to be. The post went viral again, but this time, I wasn't hiding behind anonymity. My name was attached. My story was owned, and people saw me. Not as a victim. But as someone who had risen, whole and scarred and standing. A week later, I got another letter, from Jake. This one was longer, rambling apologies. Excuses. Something about pressure and expectations. He said he hated the man he used to be. Said I was braver than I ever gave you credit for. At the bottom, in a different ink color, was a final sentence: I envy you, because you became your own person. I became who they wanted, and now I don't even know who that is. I stared at it for a long time, then folded it. Placed it in a box marked past. I never saw them again, not in person. The vineyard was sold within the year. A local couple turned it into a community garden and event space for struggling teens. Ironic, poetic, perfect. I donated $10,000 to the cause, anonymously. That was my last move, not revenge, restoration. I now live in a home with soft walls and windows that face the sunrise. My agency runs workshops for young creators with mental health challenges. I teach them what no one taught me, that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of it. Every Thanksgiving, I set an extra plate, not for guilt, for grace, because I've learned the most powerful revenge isn't destruction, it's transformation.